Hello students, I welcome you to the online teaching session 2. Before I start with the second session, I'll just discuss with you what we did in the first session. In the first session, I dealt with you firstly with the introduction part of the earth, then the formation of the earth, then the interior part of the earth, and the fourth was the spheres of the earth. In 4 spheres of the earth, I discussed with you only the lithosphere. So in today's session, I'll be discussing with you 2 more spheres, hydrosphere and atmosphere. In hydrosphere and atmosphere, we'll be discussing the main segments like firstly the introduction part of both the spheres, then the composition. Thirdly will be the structure, that is the water distribution structure of water and gases, and the last will be the usefulness of these 2 spheres. Once we do with that, then I will give you a task for home in order to make sure that you revise completely every session that I teach you. And with this constant revision, I'm sure you will have great learning and you will understand the concepts very clearly. And after understanding, you can use this as reference for your examination as well. So I'm sure you will enjoy this session as well. And as the session goes on, please keep taking the important notes from the session.
The Earth has 4 main spheres. Hydrosphere is one of them. It is the water component of the Earth. In other words, all of the water found on Earth is known as hydrosphere. The hydrosphere includes all of the water on or near the Earth's surface. This includes water in the oceans, lakes, rivers, wetlands, polar ice caps, soil, rock layers beneath Earth's surface, and clouds. Hydrosphere is the liquid component of the Earth. It includes the oceans, seas, lakes, ponds, rivers, and streams. Now, on the surface of the Earth, the percentage of water is more than that of land, and hydrosphere also covers 71% of the Earth's surface. A water body in hydrosphere that carries a huge amount of water is known as the ocean. So, ocean carries 97% of the water, and all the oceans are connected to each other. Water bodies like seas, bays, straits, all these water bodies are filled with water. Oceans on the earth are huge and deep. So valleys with depth of say 10 to 11 kilometers are located at the bottom. Apart from that, the ocean bed has similar features like that of the surface of the earth, like mountains, plateaus, vast plains, valleys, etc. So the features that you see on the surface of the earth, that same thing you could see below the ocean. So ocean is that huge and deep. Apart from that, it is also filled with water. Oceans containing 97% of the total amount of water on the earth, approximately 1/3 of remaining water is trapped in ice caps and glaciers. Some water is accumulated in the lakes and some flows in the rivers and some is stored in the interior of earth as groundwater. So the percentage here would be less than 1% or 1% for the water stored in rivers, lakes, streams, underground, etc. Amount of potable water is less. Fresh water is very precious simply because it is very difficult to get. So drinking water is very difficult to manage because the percentage is less than 1. This fresh water is required by living beings for the existence. Without water, life is not possible. The moisture for rain, which is the main source of fresh water, comes from the oceans only. So through evaporation, we could see how the moisture for rain, which is the main source of fresh water, comes from oceans. Apart from that, if you see the benefits, the uses of hydrosphere is valuable chemicals, minerals, salts, fishes, etc. are found in the seas. As we have living organisms on the land, in the same way, seas and oceans have aquatic life. So aquatic life is seen in the ocean and seas, so it is their home. So ocean and seas are home for aquatic life. Tremendous force of waves, tides and currents of oceans are potential for generating electricity. Apart from that, these oceans are also useful as waterways. So we saw many benefits of hydrosphere in different forms. So it's very important for us to make sure that we don't waste water in any form and we save it well and use it very judiciously. So students, let's take a minute and promise ourselves that we will not be wasting water anymore, and we would also create the awareness among others to save water. The sphere of air that wraps the earth from all the sides is called atmosphere. It extends approximately up to 1600 kilometers from the surface of the earth. The atmosphere contains many gases, most in small amounts, including some pollutants and greenhouse gases. Water vapor, dust particles, smoke, salt, microorganisms, etc. are also part of atmosphere. The most abundant gas in the atmosphere is nitrogen, oxygen, and argon. The atmosphere is composed of a mix of several different gases in different amounts. The permanent gases, whose percentage do not change from day to day, are nitrogen, oxygen, and argon. Nitrogen accounts for 78% of the atmosphere, oxygen 21%, and argon 0.9%. Gases like carbon dioxide, nitroxides, methane, and ozone are trace gases that accounts for about a tenth of 1% of the atmosphere. The sphere of air that wraps the earth from all sides is called atmosphere. Now, atmosphere is a sphere which is wrapping the earth from all the sides. So it is filled with air. Now it extends up to approximately 1600 kilometers from the surface of the earth. So there are actually various layers in the atmosphere which is extending up to 1600 kilometers if we look from the surface of the earth. Thirdly, it cannot be seen clearly with the naked eye like lithosphere and hydrosphere. So you could see lithosphere and hydrosphere, but atmosphere is very transparent. You can feel it but you could not clearly see it. Solid, liquid and gaseous elements are included in the atmosphere. Now for example, in solid you could take dust particles, liquid you could take moisture, and in gaseous element you could take various gases which are present in the atmosphere, and all these gases are, most of the gases are life-giving gases and are important for the survival of life. There are two important gases in the atmosphere, nitrogen and oxygen. Nitrogen comprises of 78% and oxygen comprises of 21%, whereas the other gases comprises of 1%. So these two important gases are very useful because they are life-giving gases and they provide life to various living creatures. Now as we go higher from the surface of the earth, the amount of most of the gases in the atmosphere decreases. So as we are moving towards the higher altitude, the amount of these gases reduces, so it becomes very difficult to survive. So as we are moving towards the higher layers in the atmosphere, we need to carry an alternative like oxygen cylinder so that it can keep us alive by providing us oxygen. So as we move towards the higher altitude, the amount of these gases completely reduces. Ozone gas absorbs the ultraviolet rays from the sun and protects the earth from excessive heat of the sun. Solar radiation and the ultraviolet rays can be completely protected by ozone gas and helps us from various kind of skin diseases and skin cancers, etc. So ozone gas is very useful to us. So atmosphere as a whole is very useful, and these gases which we saw in the atmosphere are also life-giving gases. In atmosphere, gases like oxygen and nitrogen keeps the living creatures on the earth alive. Now, by this we understand that oxygen and nitrogen, these are two main gases. The proportion is very high in the atmosphere. Secondly, it also gives us life. Without these two gases, life on the earth is impossible. So, from that point of view, these two gases are very, very important. Nitrogen reduces the intensity of oxygen. Now, how do we understand this? How nitrogen can reduce the intensity of oxygen? I'll explain you that. Air in a normal atmosphere contains 1 molecule of oxygen for every 4 molecules of nitrogen. Increased number of nitrogen molecules effectively block combustion from accessing oxygen molecules, not allowing fire to ignite or propagate. As a result of this process, oxygen concentration is reduced from 21% to 15%. So it has the intensity to block combustion from accessing oxygen molecules and not allowing fire to ignite or propagate. So what's happening? Oxygen concentration is getting reduced from 21 to 15. So this is the power of nitrogen, which very easily it can reduce the intensity of oxygen. Water is very important component in the atmosphere, as we already discussed in hydrosphere. Due to heat, what happens is the water in the form of vapor evaporates and mixes with the air, which is known as moisture. Now the process of cooling of water vapor is called condensation. When the vapor gets cooled up, this entire process which is undertaken is called condensation. Now moisture is seen in various forms like dew, fog, clouds and precipitation. Precipitation is rain, snow, etc. or due to condensation. So due to condensation we see moisture in this form. It cools the vapor. That's only the meaning of condensation. The effect of atmosphere is also seen on human beings in every aspect of life. So as you see, even when the season changes, different seasons will lead you to changing of food habits, clothing, habitat, economic activities. Everything changes because of the change in season. So that is in turn the effect of atmosphere. So when the changes are seen in the atmosphere, there is vast changes in our lifestyle, and so it is very important for us to make sure that the environmental balance is appropriate. Otherwise it can lead to many problems. So global warming as such is one problem that we all are facing today. So in order to keep the balance, in order to check pollution, it's very important for us to make sure that everything is balanced, everything is appropriately used, desired levels is to be controlled so that we don't face situation like this. So I'm sure you have understood the important parts of this chapter. In atmosphere, condensation, intensity of nitrogen, these are the important topics, and the effects of atmosphere on human life is again very important. So I hope you understood, and please take important notes on precipitation and condensation. Dust particles present in the atmosphere play an important role. Spreading of sun rays are visible due to these particles. It is due to dust particles that it does not suddenly turn dark after the sunset, and it does not suddenly turn bright after the sunrise. The reason is the sun rays are reflected back with the help of these dust particles. So what happens? These rays get reflected on the surface of the earth and we receive the light of the sun. Like for example, if you see, dust particles create more scattering in the mid and upper atmosphere, which can increase the vibrancy of sunsets and sunrises. However, if the dust sits low in the atmosphere, it can actually have the reverse effect. That means it leads to muted sunsets that are less colorful. So the colorful sunset and sunrise is because of dust particles. So it plays an important role. Apart from that, if you see, atmosphere is very useful. We are able to watch television, listen to radio, as well as the important gases which we see in the atmosphere are life-giving gases to the living creatures. It also protects us from the heated radiations and gives us protection from such radiations So atmosphere, just like other spheres of the earth, is very useful, and without the spheres life is not possible. So I'm sure you have understood three main spheres thoroughly, and if you practice on this more and more, I'm sure you will have the better understanding of this spheres of the earth. Coming at the end of the session, I'm sure all of you enjoyed the session, and by practicing again and again, I'm sure you will learn the new concepts, as well as you will learn lot many things from this chapter. For that, you will have to start working on mind maps. That will be your homework. And if you keep on working on mind maps, creative mind maps, colorful mind maps, I'm sure the chapter to understand will be very easy, because through mind maps you will start learning more in an organized way, in a more smarter and faster way you can understand things. So it's my strong advice to you that please start working on it, and I think through this way of learning you will ultimately sustain the information for a long time, and you will also enjoy doing it, because it will help you to remember difficult words as well as difficult sentences more easily.